Point and a clean sheet would have been looked at as positives for Nigel Clough last weekend as the Stags drew 0-0 with Oldham Athletic, but 2 further injuries left the Stags boss scratching his head and heading to Amazon to order a truckload of bubble wrap. The Stags were already playing with square pegs in round holes when at half-time, striker-turned-defender Ollie Hawkins had to go off with an injury. That added to Clough's worries as in the opening 10 minutes against Oldham, best midfielder George Maris had to go off with a nasty-looking injury. Can the Stags put out an 11 on Saturday as they head to Northampton where they'll face an old face? Play the music, Nathan. Nigel Clough will be boosted, though, by the return of suspended defender Farron Rawson and on loan centre-half Will Forrester, who last weekend made his first appearance at the One Call Stadium, albeit sitting on the bench. But with a truckload of bubble wrap at his disposal, probably, and an attitude of hard work and endeavours, can the Stags continue to improve as they head for Northampton on Saturday, and then in midweek, where they'll be further boosted by the return of Stephen Quinn and Tyree Sinclair to take on a Port Vale side who are improving week by week. We'll talk about that and a lot more over the next 45 minutes or so right here on the Mansfield Matters podcast. Get involved now and have your say on your team. Why? Because even when we have square pegs in round holes, Mansfield always matters. A very good evening, everybody. Hope that you're all doing well on this Thursday evening. Apologies that we've not been with you for a couple of weeks. It's been a bit of a nightmare over the last week or so with work commitments and what have you. But we are here tonight. However, this evening, it is a very, very reduced panel. We've got more absentees and more excuses than Nigel Clough has players available for Saturday's game at Northampton. The one man who hasn't shirked his podcast responsibility, though, is the man with the worst internet connection in Mansfield. It's Nathan Edge. Good evening, Mr. Edge. How are we?
Evening. Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to continue the trend. You know, we're missing podcasters like we're missing players, and the one turn up, we can't guarantee a good show either. So we'll see how this one goes.
We certainly will. Sorry, I was taking a sip of tea then out of my Mansfield Matters mug. No, I'm not going to go there tonight. I'm not going to go there. I should also let listeners and viewers know this evening, if you're watching on the live feed, it may not be as strong a connection than what it usually has been. I've changed internet providers in the last week or so since we last did a podcast. So it's the first time I've really had to test it out, and it's not the signals aren't coming up as strong as what they were, but we'll certainly look at those over the next week or so before the next show. Nathan just has dodgy internet anyway, but there you go. We'll persevere though, Nathan, like Nigel Clough has persevered with everything on the pitch. We want you guys at home to get involved as well and have your say on your team. Help us out by sharing your comments. But like I said, Nathan, we will persevere and get through it, because that's the Mansfield Town way at the moment, isn't it?
Well, there's no choice, is there? Let's be honest. There's a lot of frustration, in the air at the moment, and it's some of it's self-inflicted, but a lot of it is bad fortune, isn't it? Really, I do agree with what was said post-match. I can't really remember a time, certainly at this club, where we've had so many players out injured at one point. So we are right in amongst it at the minute, aren't we?
Yeah, we certainly are, and it was made a little bit worse on Saturday with what happened. And I know there was a lot of frustration after the game. And to be honest, we had tickets for something on Sunday, which for the first time I was actually almost pleased about, because I felt that if we'd have gone live sort of Sunday, which we usually will, and we will be back this Sunday, even though I'm at work at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning, we'll still be live on Sunday because we're committed to the cause. I felt that if we'd have been live after the last game, after the Oldham game on Sunday, then it could have been just an absolute rant central. There was post calling for the manager's head, and it was a really difficult one to gauge, and still is, a couple of days on, a few days before the next game, what with injuries and suspensions. We just seem to, it feels like at some point, Nath, that Nigel Clough has walked underneath a ladder, crossed paths with a black cat, and smashed a mirror all at the same time.
Yeah, we're not getting the look, are we, at the moment? So, and it's not just an excuse to defend the manager. You can, until we start winning games, unfortunately, those shouts for, for change of management and so on, they're going to be there from a proportion of the, of supporters, and they are entitled to their opinion, and that's how they see things, but. From my point of view, as frustrating as it is at the moment, we are still, we're just in, about halfway through October. Still very early in the season, and we are hopefully, touch wood, this is probably going to be the toughest it's going to be for us, selection wise, trying to find fit players and so on. Yes, we could have done better in recruitment and had a bit more depth in there, but when you look at the caliber of players we're missing. That so many of them are first teamers, and the way it's not just affected who we put on the pitch, but it's also moving around players that were, Ollie Hawkins, for example, who was arguably being our best defender, but that means you're taking someone out of attack. So we're not having luck in that department, and I personally think that Clough should be judged on when we've got a few of these players back. If we're not getting results then I think rightly the pressure probably will be there a little bit more. But at the moment, I think it's very, very harsh to call for his head when we've got such injury issues. You can't, you can only do what you can with the players to your disposal, and there's not many to choose from at the moment.
Let's dive straight in with the fan questions, the viewer questions. As always, get involved in the comments and have your say on your team. TJ has kicked us off tonight and asks, do you think if the Radfords were still in the country at the club daily, things would change? Personally, for me, Nate, I don't think it would, because it doesn't matter where they're located. They could be living at the One Call Stadium. They could convert the Bishop Street into a luxury apartment if they wanted to. Nigel Clough would still have these injuries and still have these suspensions to contend with. Yes, there might have been a little bit more of a scrutinising eye on the recruitment in the summer, but I don't think where we are now can be attributed to that whatsoever for me.
No, I mean, and David Sharp was brought in to bridge that gap. And, when he did come in, everybody was praising that decision and was all saying it made sense. Obviously, the Radfords live out in Portugal. They come over every now and then, but that's up to them. That's their decision. And, they're not the only chairman and chairwoman in the Football League to not be at the club 24/7. That's just how some football clubs work. And that's why you have CEOs and the directors at clubs to take over that more day-to-day running the business. So running the football club. So that's for me, that's fine. I think they've addressed that issue a couple of seasons ago, which I think was I believe is a step in the right direction. I just think at the moment it's a lot of bad luck, and you don't want to sit here and talk about bad luck because it just sounds like a proper cop-out excuse, doesn't it? But that's a frustration that we're in that situation. Yes, some of it's self-inflicted, and that the players and management have to take a look at themselves for that. But I don't think it lies. Don't think it much would have changed if the Radfords were here. Every day, like you say, maybe recruitment we may have performed a little bit better, but that's not necessarily a failure at them. It's a failure at the ones that were in to do that recruitment job.
Well, it's an interesting one because I got a perspective of two ex-Mansfield Town assistant managers over the last week or so, one of which I now work with on a day-to-day basis. who was there in the conference days before John and Carolyn sort of came in, and was sort of saying, when you've got a set amount of squad of players who can play a certain way, when you take one or two of those players out of there through injury, through suspension, it really does rock the boat. Another who I will name is Ben Futcher, who I happened to bump into at St George's Park yesterday. He now works for the FA, sort of helping with helping coaches to get their A licence. And we were having a good chat. He remembered me, and we were having a good chat for 10-15 minutes. And he was saying that even the best managers in the world, it can't gauge and can't plan for the luck which Mansfield have had. His first question was what's going off, because he's not been actively involved in it. He's not sort of seen it day to day. He said, what's going off? And as soon as I said, we've got about 14 players out injured and suspended, and he went, there's your problem. You can cope with one or two, but when when that domino effect happens, it's really difficult from a dressing room perspective to keep the players ticking over, because players won't go in at full pelt because they will be scared of picking up a knock. They will be scared of picking up a suspension. And, when you're getting the opportunity to play, the last thing you want to do is do that. So I guess there is that a little bit in there, Nath, of at the moment with the players that we've got, considering that we've got literally nobody else to come in, there is a bit of a hesitance about us. And I think you're seeing that in the way we're going forward. We're happy to defend and to try and keep a clean sheet, because it's a true fact that if you keep a clean sheet, you've got a point.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big positives we can take out of the last few games. We've managed to stop the conceding all the goals. We were conceding 3, and for fun really at one point. So we've tightened up back there. It's not been certainly nowhere near as exciting to watch, and some games have been dire. But we could have been sitting here looking at the last 4 games if it wasn't for that penalty, which wasn't a penalty against Barrow, would have been saying three clean sheets out of 4, which isn't bad when you look at our circumstances. So there are positives there to grasp at, and I think we should do that when you're in when you're down and out. You've got to look at those positives when they're there to try and have something to build from. But it's going to have effect on the dressing room having so many players out, and it's not just on a match day. It's not just those players that do go out onto the pitch, and for their worries about that. They know they're going to be missing their star, some of their star players, so they've got to sort of psychologically deal with. Like I say, they maybe have a bit more caution about them to not pick up any more injuries, although that didn't necessarily work for us on Saturday. But I think it's got the aspect that it'll have a big impact on training as well, because when you've got good players missing, yes, I know obviously the suspended ones are still involved with training, but you've got the injured ones that obviously can't. It does lower the quality of training. So, and that's again going to have a knock-on effect into the league fixtures.
Yeah, and it doesn't just lower the quality of this training, like you say. It impacts on what you can do in training, because if you've not got the numbers available to be able to look at, practicing set pieces, practicing counter-attacking play, you are limited in what you can do. You are limited in where you can go, and you are literally just trying to get through. Yes, if you look at the players that we've had out and that we've had missing, there's only actually 3 of which who have been suspended, which was Farron Rawson, who was 1 game and he's back available, thank goodness, for Saturday. I never thought I'd be saying that. Stephen Quinn, who seems to have been out longer than anything, and obviously young Tyrese Sinclair. But like you say, those 3 can have trained and will have trained. So only match days where they're not available. But the other 10, and it is literally double figures, who aren't available on match day, also aren't available for training. So it does have a huge effect. TJ adds to his comment earlier. He says, I feel the domino effect happened after Perchie. I can't remember the last time the Stags had such bad luck. Yeah, absolutely. Probably when a certain face that we are going to see on Saturday had that goal ruled out for offside. I'm not going to mention his name because I don't want to play the clip yet, because we will play that later, because that's definitely happening on tonight's show. Paul asks, does a fully fit squad see us in the top 6? Now, this is an interesting question, Nate, because if you look at when the domino effect started to happen, and I think, TJ's right, pretty much after the Perch injury and maybe sort of, Colchester the game after, I think, I wouldn't say top 6, but I'd certainly say if we had the consistency there of having those players available, I'd certainly say, given momentum, we'd be a top 10 side.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'd say top half, and I'd be pretty comfortable with that. With saying that. So it's hard to judge because obviously you're basically the only way you can even give a slight opinion on that is judging it on the first sort of 3 games, isn't it? And yeah, when we played Newport, Bristol Rovers, and Colchester in there, games that we played pretty well. You could argue we was lucky against Bristol Rovers getting that sort of last minute penalty, and they were missing a few players, and same with Newport and so on. But we played okay. You could see what we were trying to build. But then there were games after we actually played better footballing wise and in our style of play, but didn't get any results. AKA, Swindon away, for example, and a couple of others. So it's really really hard to say because although we were playing okay, we were shipping a lot of goals. Now we're at the opposite end now. We're not shipping goals, but we're not playing okay. So it's like if you kind of say where do you go from here? Well, getting key players back is a big thing. So I think if we can keep this bit of stability back there, then hopefully with the addition of maybe, I mean, for example, obviously we will come on to it in a bit more detail, Northampton, but with Rawson coming back in, is he going to put faith in Clark to stay right back? And then is he going to put Ollie Hawkins back up front, which then might actually give us a bit more threat going forward? Because that's then the next step, isn't it? If we can keep these clean sheets, like you said earlier, and get the point and not lose, it's then, right, next stage, how do we actually get the ball in the back of the net? Because we're not looking that dangerous at the moment.
No, we're not. And I think that's a huge problem. You mentioned it there, Ollie Hawkins. We'll talk about it a little bit more. But what I'll say for now is it's no coincidence that since he's been at centre-back, we've not conceded a goal from open play. We've only conceded one, and that was from a penalty. And I think he's key there, but we need him going forward. But we'll touch upon that a little bit more later on. I want to go to some more comments because I also want to talk about the younger players that sort of have been knocking on the door recently. In particular, as you mentioned there, James Clark and Keaton Ward. Let's have a look at this comment from Paul. Do you guys also think that the FA should allow loan players to move to other clubs whilst the season is on? Yeah. Now, of course. A few seasons ago, the rulings changed, didn't they? The transfer window was there to bring in permanent transfers, but you could still loan players during the season itself on, short-term deals, whether it was a month or 3 months or whatever. And, there's a lot of criticism from the bigger clubs that, some clubs would just be bringing players in for the sake of bringing them in and they wouldn't get game time and things like that. But I actually think that there should be an amendment to the ruling because at the moment, the way it works is you can only sign players permanent or on loan during the transfer window. I think every single club should be given in the space between both windows. So between the end of August when the transfer window, summer transfer window closes, and December the 31st, you should be given 2 loan spots which you can get, but on the condition that the player who comes in has to play X amount of games between when they start and when their loans up. So let's say 10% of games. So say, for example, that they come in we get a loan sign. We miss the transfer deadline day. That's fine. And then we use, for example, let's use our own scenario. So we signed 2 centre halves on transfer deadline day. Great. Game after, Richard Narty gets injured and then plays the game after that whilst injured, which further injures him and puts him out for 5 or 6 weeks. So after he's done that, so 2 games after, we're in the middle of September now. We can then use one of those signing slots to go and sign another centre-half from another club. But if he comes in, he has to play at least 10 or 20% of the games between the date he signed and January 31st. With me so far, Nath?
Yeah, I switched off. Yeah.
Yeah, I know you did. I know you did. I think that basically allows then the parent club who had so many reservations and grievances about just sending younger players out just to train and not get game times, that assurance that they're going to play. But it also helps clubs in our situation, because if you were allowed those 2 loan spots, we'd have definitely used them.
Yeah, I mean, you could also just, rather than the complication of having, slots and so on, maybe if your squad gets X amount of injuries, it's quite easy to prove. Then you're allowed to bring in, you're allowed an emergency loan goalkeeper. You should be, I think, in certain situations, allowed an emergency outfield player as well, depending on number of injuries. So, we talk about it. It's probably not gonna change unless the football clubs decide themselves that it's a problem. You'd have thought at the moment, even when COVID can still play a bit of an effect, they'd have kept something like that in place. But
Yeah.
they obviously have their reasons to take that take that ruling out there, to stop it from happening, which is, unfortunately to our problem. And people say, well, let's go out and get some free agents, but there obviously isn't many options out there of those either, because I'm pretty sure if they were, we'd have had them in the door by now, because we're missing that many players. We'd almost take anybody really, but they're obviously not there.
I mean, I did ask Ben Futcher when I saw him at St George's yesterday if he fancied coming in on an emergency loan and sign as a free agent, but his foot was in a boot. He's out for a couple of weeks, so even that option would have ended in an injury.
He probably did. That's probably why he's got his injury. He probably came in for just to sign the contract and stubbed his toe. Yeah. So you just step in, in NG18, you're basically injured.
Yeah. Why are we trying to make that a thing, by the way?
I brought up to you, didn't I? I was like, why is it on random full time or pre-match? It's like full time at NG18. It's not that iconic, really.
Not yet.
I mean, I live in it.
Yeah. Well, here we go. Is that your defense of it trying to become iconic because you live there?
Yeah, maybe that's why they're doing it. It makes sense.
Famous fans and all that. Famous fans.
Yeah,
Pedro's been in touch and says, all right, been a while. Had a cracking midfield end of last season. Decent front end. Defence needed something. Then injuries, etc. has stuffed us up for now. 2 silly suspensions, though. Yeah, that's the difficult thing. I'd probably say maybe 3 silly suspensions in.
Well, yeah, Ollie Clark as well. Not too long ago, and that was so we had 4 really, haven't we? In the last few weeks where we were missing players. So when you add that into the mix, and then when you look at the midfield, the issue we've kind of got is you're missing probably one of the most, I'd probably say arguably the most key player in Stephen Quinn, which is the most annoying thing. That one is the most self-inflicted, isn't it, of them all, and the longest ban. So that's the most frustrating bit. But then you've got other players, or you say probably the 2 sort of key players that you want to be most influential going forward in George Lapsley and Rhys Oates, who aren't quite performing at the moment. So there's a lot of reasons for our sort of bad form at the moment. But when I look at it, I don't think it's a permanent issue. I think form will come for some of these players over the season. That will certainly happen, and as we get players back from injury, you'll see that the quality improve as well. Like that we have seen for glimpses over the season so far.
There will be a massive, massive lift on Tuesday night. I mean, we are getting towards light at the end of the tunnel now. Yes, we had the horrible injury for George Morris. We'll hear from him in a couple of minutes' time. We obviously have got Ollie Clark playing with a broken nose at the minute, or a reset nose, playing in a bit of a mask, which is interesting, which means he can't really compete at the levels which we'd expect him to. We've got Ollie Hawkins, who's our best striker and best centre-back all in one, who missed 45 minutes of the game last week and didn't really train because of a back issue and won't have trained much this week either. But we have got Farron Rawson back from suspension, so that's one tick in the box. We've got Will Forrester, who seemed to be crocked forever, finally arrived. He'll have had a full week's training under his belt this week. back in. So whilst we've potentially got 2 out, for once, Nath, for Saturday at least, those potential 2 out have been boosted by the fact it's been balanced by a potential 2 back in. Then you add on top of that a couple of days later when we play Port Vale at home on Tuesday night, we're going to have another 2 back available because Tyree Sinclair back from his suspension 3-game ban. And finally, Stephen Quinn's 6-game ban is up as well. And I honestly think you will see a massive, massive lift from us on Tuesday night, especially when Stephen Quinn is back in the fold.
Yeah, I mean, as for Saturday, I'd probably say it's more 1 1/4, players back in. Will Forrester, first of all, we haven't seen what he can do yet, but he's not going to be match fit or even close to it by the sounds of it. Never mind. We might not even be fit, but never mind match fit. So there's that to contend with, and the fact that he's only just joined the squad. So is he going to have a bit of the Richard Narty sort of first game jitters? He didn't have a very good first game. So to me, whether he'll be a massive boost, I'm not so sure. But at least it's a body that we can put on the pitch if needed. But for me, it'll be Tuesday night where we probably will see the most, biggest impact. And that for me is probably just simply one man's presence, because we saw it a little bit on Tuesday night last week when we played Sheff Wednesday in the in that cup that don't matter anymore because we're out. So, I think Quinn coming back in will be massive for us in that sort of midfield area where we have gone a little bit missing of late.
Jay in the comments says, it's bad recruitment when folk are hoping to see Rawson back in the side. Let's
don't say Clive will be on this link. He'll jump in to fight his corner.
He'll be watching this back and he'll be absolutely fuming at this moment. He'll have spat his tea out at that. Whilst we send that little message to Clive, let's hear from the man who is tasked with putting a team together for Saturday. He put square pegs in round holes on Saturday against Oldham at the One Call Stadium. Will he have to do the same again? Will he have to do the same again on Saturday? I was going to play that clip, and then I just realised I just had a little look on my screen. I can't play either. Do you know what really helps, Nath? Turning your microphone up. That does help. It's all going absolutely tits up tonight. Right. I'm going to let people in behind the curtain here. What I've just been saying for 2 minutes whilst my microphone was faded down was that I can't play either of the Nigel Clough or George Murray's clips because I've not edited them properly because they're showing up as 8 minutes and 4 minutes on my screen when they should be 90 seconds long. So obviously they're the full interviews and I've not edited them properly. Well done, Craig. What a dickhead. And I also got to hold my hands up as well that I actually forgot we were doing this podcast tonight. I was on my way home from work. Seriously, this is what happened. So we usually do this on a Sunday. We couldn't do it on Sunday because of one reason or another. Then. I don't know.
That's not entirely true. We have Sunday and a midweek one, so
that's true.
That doesn't count as an excuse. So we'll cross that one off.
Right.
Next.
So we were going to do it on Wednesday last night, and then Cam said he wasn't available, and then Clive said he wasn't available, and you weren't sure, and I wasn't sure what time I'd get back because Wednesday is a bit of a dicky day for me. It's a really, really annoying one. So we said, right, we'll do it on Thursday. And Cam said, yeah, I'm in, no problem. We can do that. I was driving home. I got to the traffic lights. It was an absolute standstill, as it always is, coming back from Derby. So I had a little cheeky look on my watch where the chat came through. A message from Cam, sorry, lads, can't do the podcast tonight. And then a message from you saying, is it 7 o'clock? And I'm thinking, is what still 7? Oh shit! I've got to do a podcast. So there you go. And I thought I'd edited that audio as well. I'm really frustrated that I've not saved that audio. That's bad from me. So no Nigel Clough or George Maris tonight. But the long and short of it was Nigel Clough was saying we'll get through it, and hopefully we'll have some more players back. Shall we move swiftly on, and look ahead to the next couple of games? You know what? Also, I've not done, and this is it's just come into my head, Nath. What also I've not done? No, I've done graphics. Graphics is fine because that's a 2-minute job. I've not collated the scores from last week's prediction game, and I've not updated the podcast prediction link.
That's just because I put 0-0 draw and I'm top of the league, isn't it? And if you've got someone else written down, you've obviously made a mistake.
No, well, I definitely haven't, because I've got it in front of me right here, and I'll show it to the camera just to prove it, not that you can see it. But yeah, you went for a 3-2 win last week, so none of us scored any points, but I've still got to go through it and just check. But there you go. Right, come on, let's.
I mean,
go on.
Out of the audio that we are missing, obviously, we should probably say, just in case anybody hasn't heard it. So the good news is that George Maris doesn't look as serious as it did, didn't it? I think that's the longest sort of stoppage. I mean, obviously, understandably so, but I think that's a game when I've physically been there. I can't remember a stoppage as long as that. So obviously, with the oxygen out, things like you are concerned, but to think that he's not long after he was up and talking and recovering relatively well, and they just said obviously at the moment now the physio is going to be doing his test to see testing for concussion basically. So he's a down for Saturday, isn't he? But that's a good result really. So it did look like it. At the time I thought that's, first of all, you hope he's all right, but second, you think that's probably him done for the season as well. So you just never know.
It was very, very concerning because you saw the doctor run straight on, the physio run straight on, get the medical bag, get the stretcher. You obviously can't see because he's got his back to us. The players, it's on the other side of the pitch, so you can't really gauge a good idea of what's happening. But he has been speaking to the press this week. I was hoping to play you a clip of it, but I can't because I'm an idiot. But I can. What I can do is I can read a little bit of it. So let's have a little look at what he said. I'm not going to try George Maris accent because he's a bit northern. I can't really do that. He says he confirmed that he now only feels a little bit groggy. He says, I'm all right. It was a bit of a whack, but I feel all right. I'm a bit groggy. We know that they like to play out from the back, so we were man for man. I saw their centre-half go to play the ball. I read it, but I think James Clarke had read it as well. He's come the other way, and it was a bit of a car crash from then on. I kind of knew what was going to happen. It was one of those things you can't really avoid. We were both going for the ball, so it was just one of those things. I remember hitting Clarkey, but then the next thing was seeing Tom Whittemore, the physio, on the pitch. He says, I've rested for a few days. Now I need to do some tests with Tom. This is on Tuesday. Then we'll go from there. We'll see how it goes. If it settles down, then maybe there'll be a chance I'll play on Saturday. But I need to speak to Tom and see what he says. And with those sorts of injuries, Nath, even though we know we have got injuries racking up quicker than anything else, quicker than a certain former winger when he used to run down the wing. It was, you can't risk it. So for me, he just goes on the list of those who can't play Saturday.
Yeah, I'd be very, very, very surprised if he was available for Saturday. So and so if I just really hope Hawkins is going to be available, and I think it might be one of those where he's maybe asked to soldier on because with that we need him that much. So we'll see, but fingers crossed it's the standard protocol that followed with Maris. And I think if I remember correctly, it was 10. I remember when Sweeney got it last year or the year before.
Yeah.
I feel like it was 10 days or something like that before able to return to physical action. So whether he'd miss Port Vale or not as well, possibly. So, but hopefully it's not too long out.
Yeah, certainly so. We wish him all the best, and he does say that you certainly hear the crowd roar and everything. I'm just sort of trying to write down a list at the minute of players who we are missing. But talking of players that we're missing, let's talk about those who can step in. And this is where I perhaps thought that Nigel Clough perhaps not necessarily bottled it on Saturday, but definitely made a wrong decision. when Maris went off, he brought Reece Oates on and changed the shape, and we'd started really, really well. And I felt we needed a midfielder in there, and one person who has been really, really doing well for me, he certainly did well in the trophy game, was Keaton Ward, and he did when he came on after about 75 minutes. I was a little bit miffed, Nath, as to why he didn't come on for Maris. When Maris went down, because we were certainly missing that in that midfield.
To be honest, I was quite happy to see Oates come on, because at that stage of the game, we hadn't really done a lot going forward. So I felt that we had the players on the pitch to drop in there without having to sacrifice too much. And by bringing on Oates, I did hope that it would bring more attacking threat. And it just didn't pan out that way. So in hindsight, yes, you could say Keaton Ward had certainly earned the chance to go on and play that position. But I didn't think that at the time. I was quite happy to see Oates go on. For that reason, because we weren't doing a lot going forward. So, but Keaton Ward, when he eventually did come on, played incredibly well. So it's he's one that I think now would have to be a serious contender for Saturday.
Let's talk another contender for Saturday, and one man who I'll be very disappointed to see not start, and that is James Clark, who was voted fans man of the match. He would have undoubtedly got our man of the match as well had we done the Sunday sermon. It really showed his prospects. Yes, he's got the odd mistake in him, but what I really like about him is the attitude he has towards putting that right, and 99.9% of the time when he does make a mistake, he rectifies it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a young player, and you'd like to think the more sort of football he plays, more of those mistakes would be corrected. Obviously, you got to get experience, and when you're out there learning your trade, you're going to make errors, but you can't learn from them if you're not out there doing them, can you? So, thankfully, anything he's done hasn't been costly, which is something you can't say for a lot of players in our in our team this season. So, I agree. A couple of mistakes there. He did put those right, and I just think he's still our best option at right back when Gordon's not there. I still think he does and will do a better job than throwing Hewitt out there. So I'd be disappointed if he's again not on the starting lineup for Saturday.
Pedro says on the Maris injury, watched on telly, got close up, medical team at Ace, took time in case of the neck injury and had to roll him onto the stretcher. Props to all of the team involved. Yeah, of course, a massive well done to all of the medical staff involved in that one. Let's switch our focus then, Nath, to the next two games, because we've got a couple of games in quick succession then, where we will have some players back. I'm just going to go through, and please feel free at the end of this to give me names that I might have missed from this list of those who are injured. So obviously missing James Perch, long-term injury, Kel Gordon, Ryan Stirk, Richard Narty through injury, Stephen Quinn and Tyrese Sinclair suspended. They're definite outs. They're definite outs for Saturday's game. We're waiting on the fitness of Will Forrester, Farron Rawson, Ollie Hawkins, and of course George Maris. I'm probably going to say that Maris will miss Saturday anyway. So if you look at that list, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 definitely out if you include Maris for Saturday. Potentially 8 with Hawkins. We'll see how he is. Hopefully he plays one more game through it, and then once you've got Quinn back in and potentially, given Forrester another couple of days training, you can potentially afford to just put him on the bench for Tuesday night. But so a long list of injuries, but either way, we've got to get through it. And we face a Northampton side who have had an indifferent start to the season. Of course, relegated last term from League One, went up and came straight back down. Change of manager, obviously, and have seemed to have been doing all right this season. And inevitably, Nath, it's going to see the return of Danny Rose. First and foremost, what do you expect the reaction to be towards our beloved best anagram in football.
Oh, Mr. Randy Wands.
Mr. Randy Wands.
I hope and anticipate it'll be a good reaction. He spent some good seasons with us, and although at times he was criticised, I don't think you could ever fault his work rate and commitment for the club. So, and I'm sure a lot of fans would welcome him back into the team with arms right now. So I'd hope for a good reception, and hopefully he's still a stag at heart. And if he gets a chance near the end of the game to win it, hopefully he blasts it over the bar like he did for a few times for us as well. So it'd be nice to see him again. But hopefully he has a stinker tomorrow on Saturday.
I just hope that when he inevitably does pop up and score against us, he doesn't celebrate, because I think that will kill it a little bit. But I remember actually seeing this a couple of days ago. I remember when we played Bury a few seasons back, and he scored quite a freak goal, really. The goalkeeper sort of dropped it and rolled it out, and Rose behind him nipped in and scored or whatever, and he didn't celebrate then. And I can't remember him actually when he scored against his former clubs celebrating. So hopefully he doesn't do that and remembers, because he might have got some stick, but for me he was always a good character and a good player. And I still say this now. Yes, we obviously got rid of him at the start of last season. I would have loved to have seen him under Nigel Clough, but you've got to move on. You've got to move on.
Yeah. I think that the bits where he got the most stick was the whole Steve Evans turning his head a little bit in the transfer request and things. That I think it wasn't necessarily always on the field issues for him. It was stuff off the field, which sometimes the influences that cause those issues, really. So like I said, I'm with you. Hopefully he'll get a good option, and I'd like to think he wouldn't celebrate if he does score, but time will tell with that one. But no, it'll be still be good to see what he is like these days, if he's still got it, or if some people say if he ever had it, but you know what I mean.
Hey, I tell you what though, mate, with our defensive crisis, he would have been a fucking handy asset to have, wouldn't he? I'm sorry, I forgot that we were live.
Without doubt, our two centre-back pairing would be Ollie Hawkins and Danny Rose, wouldn't it?
Sure. It'd be absolutely solid, mate. Absolutely solid. Quick podcast ruling. If he does score against us on Saturday, does that mean we're not allowed to play it anymore?
Yeah, I think we'd have to. That's got to be a thing, hasn't it?
Yeah. So Rosie, don't score.
Don't do it. Don't lose score. Your Mansfield Matters fame.
Yeah, don't, because everyone wants it after their name. It's a trigger. It's an absolute trigger. So don't do it, because me and Nathan both believe in.
Yeah, speaking of that, no Nando's pre-match, thankfully, because you said the next round was on me. So after reading that message, reading that post, I thought, the silver lining of drawing 0-0, I suppose.
Now, this is an interesting one, though, because previous home games we'd lost. So to bring some context to this, obviously, we are a little bit superstitious on this podcast. We decided to have a bit of a Mansfield Matters group meeting, because, we were all up in town, and we had a bit of time before the game. So we decided to go for a pre-match Nando's and discussed a few things, some very exciting events coming soon. So make sure you get on our website and join our mailing list to be involved and to get early news about them. But we had a Nando's, and then we ended up drawing the game. And, we sort of said, if we don't lose or we win, we've got to do it again. Now, we didn't win, but we also didn't lose and kept a clean sheet. So does that mean we've got to do it again? Or does that mean we've got to meet up again, but go to a different place? Maybe go for a Costa at Odeon or something?
Well, I mean, by the end of the season, I feel like we're going to try every food establishment in Mansfield. But yeah, I mean, I suppose it's not a bad thing to do, isn't it? Is that until we lose then?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's probably the way we have to go, isn't it? But obviously, Tuesday night home games don't count, because midweeks it's a different pattern.
Oh yeah, that's a completely different situation, isn't it? Go on then, we can give that a go. I'm sure we won't be doing it for long in the current state. But yeah, I mean, the problem is, although we didn't lose, we can't say it was a good outcome in the end. The fact that we end up missing, two key players got injured, so it swings and roundabouts. But we'll try somewhere else.
Maybe we'll do it once more just to see if Cam actually turns up on time.
Yeah, that probably won't happen, but yeah.
There we go. Moving swiftly on, let's go through podcast predictions. We'll get the other guys' predictions as well on the group chat. If you want to play along with this, by the way, this is the game which Nathan is slagging off at every turn, but there you go, where you can win yourselves one of these Mansfield Matters mugs if you are the best podcast predictor during the month of November. Are we in now? No, October. Wishing the years away. If you are the best podcast predictor in October, then you will win yourself a Mansfield Matters mug. All you got to do is go onto our little link, which we pop at our social media tomorrow, and predict the outcome for the next 2 games. It's as simple as that. Put your name in, put the what you think the score will be, and then you can add some goal scorers for a bonus point. I'm not going to delve into it because I do it every week, and Nathan slags me off. Let's go straight in, though, to the predictions for the next game away at Northampton. Give me your prediction. Nath, what are you going to go with?
I'm going to go for a scoreline like I feel seems to almost always happen at Northampton. I'm going to go for 1-1.
Okay, draw 1-1. And your goal scorer?
Jeez.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah, that's the hardest question. That's harder than the result, I think. I'm going to go for maybe it'll be a contentious penalty decision, and it'll probably be Danny Johnson take a penalty. So I'm going to say Danny Johnson.
Okay, I will go
extra point if it's a penalty.
No, that's not in the rules. Stop trying to win extra points. I will go with a sneaky 2-1 win. I think we might do it in the last minute, and I will also go for
Danny Rose's own goal.
Yeah, for Danny Rose's own goal. No, for Danny Johnson, and I will go for back in the side. Rawson header. It's bound to happen one of these days, isn't it?
That is wishful thinking.
I know. And then, of course, let's turn our attentions. We'll come to predictions in a second, but let's turn our attentions to Fort Vale, because there is another man who is also very, very worthy of a play of the little tune. Although my mouse isn't responding on my computer, so I can't play it right now. I've lost where my mouse is. Thanks. This is going really well today, isn't it, kids? Really, really well. Where's that gone? I actually don't know where my mouse has gone. Lost it. Anyway, and that is Sir Mal of Benningshire. Sir Mal Benning, of course, back at the One Call Stadium on Tuesday night with Port Vale, who have, despite a bit of a contentious start in the first couple of games, seem to have picked up over the last couple of games or so.
Yeah. It'd be another one where I expect a good reception for Mal if he is playing. I think. There we go. He's got his mouth back. His mouth back working. All good. Yeah. If he plays, I mean, I've been looking at the last few games at the team sheet support there. I don't actually think he's been starting that many. So whether he's not in favour or whether he's injured, I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to check that. But if he is there, again, I'd expect a good reception, even if it's just for that one goal to put one of the final nails in the coffin down at those who shall not be named. So, but again, that'll be a tough game. But it's one of them now where I don't really know where to go with that game, because sometimes, for some reason, we perform better against the teams up there than we do with the teams down the bottom. And we've also got that added bonus that, with the return of Stephen Quinn, which I think will boost the team. So it's going to be a really hard one to call.
Yeah, well, you've got to call it. Here we go.
All right, I'm going to go for a 2-1 defeat.
Oh, 2-1 defeat.
After everything I've just said.
Go on then, who's scoring?
2-1 defeat, and the goal scorer will be George Lapsley. I am going to go for a 2-0 win. I think we're going to bounce back. I think we'll get a win on Saturday against Northampton, and then with the return of Stephen Quinn, we will get a clean sheet. He
will also be on the score sheet against Port Vale, along with I'm going to back Rhys Oates to get himself a goal. So yes, we'll wait and see. If you want to play along with the game, the link will be on our social media. That's at MTFC Matters on Facebook and Twitter. Probably at some point tomorrow, which is Friday. That's pretty much all we've got time for tonight. Apologies that it's been a little bit ramshackle, but appreciate you guys getting involved as always. I guess, Nathan, the one good thing and one positive to end on is, despite this horrible run we've been on in terms of not being able to pick up a victory, we have tightened things up at the back. All right, we've had to sacrifice a goal scorer in Ollie Hawkins, but there is light at the end of the tunnel. You look at that list of players who were missing, and you've got players coming back in now. And honestly, I think when we speak at this time next week after these two games, we'll be in a much better position in terms of where players are. Fingers crossed, touch wood, that we are in that position to be speaking a little bit more positively, because surely the luck must swing back at some point, right?
Yeah, hopefully. And if you turn your attention away from the players that aren't available, I mean, the ones that are, I'd like to think at some point, even if one of them hits a little bit of form, because we are in a bit of a lull in that aspect as well. If you think George Lapsley can find his feet a little bit more, like we know we can. If Rhys Oates can step up to the player that we think we know he can be, and same with Danny Johnson as well. If just they can up their performances by 5 or 10%, hopefully, these slight improvements we've made defensively over the last few weeks, hopefully, if their performances lift a little bit and we can do a bit more attacking wise, we can sneak a game 1-0 or 2-1. So hopefully, let's hope we've weathered the worst and things can improve, but let's also be realistic and know that we've got a tough battle ahead of us for the next few games just to get through this rut as well.
Absolutely. Thanks very much for getting involved with the show tonight. I am prepared. I'm happy to hand this over to Mr. Clough. Can you guess what I've got in my hand, Nate? Keep it clean.
No, not really.
Well, what have we been talking about? Can you hear it? Can you hear it?
Sounds like bubble wrap. Is that?
It is bubble wrap.
I didn't know if you're going to go down there, because it's obviously probably been surrounding a mug before. And I know where you normally go with these things, but I'm going to guess you're sticking with bubble wrap.
Well, you see, there's a very good reason why I've got this, mate, is because when we're sending the mugs out, they're wrapped in bubble wrap. But I am happy to hand this over to Nigel Clough for Saturday's game to help us get through. Nate, thanks very much, as always, for getting involved tonight. We will see you again on Sunday for the Sunday sermon. And my thanks to you guys at home as well for getting involved in the show tonight. We know it's been a little bit ramshackle, a little bit unplanned, but that is what makes Mansfield Matters Mansfield Matters at the end of the day. We are all here for one common cause, and that is to follow the journey. And the journey will take us to Northampton on Saturday. The last time we were there, nobody could have predicted what would happen after that. Fingers crossed that Mansfield's curse ends and that we get back to winning ways. You can play along with the podcast predictions game. Make sure you check out our social media at MTFC Matters on Facebook and on Twitter. And join us for more reaction on Sunday with the Sunday sermon as we have reaction from that Northampton game. Until then, stay safe, look after yourself, and if you want to support the podcast, mtfcmatters.co.uk is the place to go to buy one of those lovely mugs. Until then, enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you on Saturday. Sing loud, sing proud, and Cloughie, don't forget the bubble wrap. Are you fed up of having a packet of biscuits and not having anything to dunk them in? Get yourself to the kitchen, make a cup of tea, and put that cup of tea in a mug. mtfcmatters.co.uk. Biscuits not provided.